Now, I am very excited to introduce our featured speaker today. We are so privileged to have you, Governor Dukakis. Just a quick background, because there are some people young enough here who may not have any idea. So, Governor Michael Dukakis, he was a three-term governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and he served longer in that post than any other person in history. He was also part of he was a 1988 Democratic candidate for president. So after graduating from Swarthmore College in 1955, Governor Dukakis served as an enlisted intelligence analyst for the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. And after completing his military service, he graduated from Harvard Law School in 1960. After serving in the General Court of the Massachusetts Legislature, Governor Dukakis was elected governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in 1974. Ladies and gentlemen, Michael Dukakis. Have the podium, or you can have the mic, or whatever you want to take the mic. All right, very good.
Thanks very, very much. We'll keep this very informal. Thank you for inviting me. Sorry I don't have a shirt and tie, but one of the things about being a former governor is you can wear anything you goddamn want. I don't like ties, but they look good. Just a little bit about Kitty and me. I think it was about 24 years ago, Ed Edelman, who I thought was one of the best public servants I ever knew, invited me to come out and speak at an annual political science lecture at UCLA. I'm married to a great woman who is still the best looking Medicare recipient in America, and she's just had her 81st birthday. But she's never liked New England women, despite her New England background. And I came out. It was Memorial Day weekend, I remember. Campus was beautiful. The city was lovely, the weather was great. And when I get back to Boston, I teach full-time at Northeastern University. I've been there for 27 years. And they were on a quarter system at the time, like UCLA. So I came home and I said to Kitty, you know, what would you think of seeing if I could teach during the winter quarter at UCLA? And I'll teach the other 3 quarters at Northeastern. She said, that sounds pretty good. And we've been doing it, folks, for the last 23 years. It's really been terrific. And since, as you may know, Boston is now in the middle of its worst cold snap in 100 years, and we got out just in time. We're not regretting it. It was 80 degrees when we arrived here on Friday. And we've had a terrific experience up here, folks. It's really been wonderful. I love teaching. I love teaching these kids. We're producing some great young people these days, let me tell you. One of them, a guy named Jimmy Gomez, just got elected to Congress, was my student. Mexican kid, came over here with his family, settled in Riverside, whose mayor, by the way, Rusty Bailey, is a former student of mine, and a student assistant. By the way, Bailey, we were talking about homelessness with these good folks from the LAPD who do a terrific job. I mean, I've watched the evolution of police-community relations in this city for the past 26 years. It's really remarkable. And I'll take a little bit of the credit for that, because I trained Bill Bratton when he was in his work with me for 6 years. But beyond that, you guys do a fabulous job. I hope I won't have to call, because we have an apartment next door full of students on Kelton Avenue. And every once in a while it gets pretty tough. And we've tried our best to not bother you guys, but I went over there once when they make a big racket, and some guy said to me, do you have a warrant? I said, are you kidding? I'm not a cop, I'm just an ex-politician, and I want to go to sleep, you know, these kids. But it's been a wonderful experience for us, folks, and we've really enjoyed it. And thank you for helping to create a community in which we've really had great experiences. And Gomez, an interesting guy, who was this kid, youngest of 6 in a family of Mexican immigrants, came to Riverside. I think he was working at Target or something after he got out of high school. And somehow took a course at community college, got a B, and somebody said, you ought to come here. Transferred to UCLA, was my student. There was something about this kid that I really liked. Brought him in, I said, you interested in politics? You ever done anything? No. You interested? Yeah, I'm kind of interested. Graduated magna cum laude from UCLA, came to the Kennedy School at Harvard, got a master's, came back out here, ran for the assembly, got elected, he's just been elected congressman by 20 percentage points, and he's a terrific young kid. And Rusty Bailey, the mayor of Riverside, was my student assistant as a master's candidate at UCLA. Now doing something very interesting, folks. I don't know whether this would work in Western LA, because I know the homelessness problem is a very serious problem for you guys. He's got approximately 400 homeless, chronically homeless people in Riverside. And he's gotten every single religious congregation, and I guess there are 400 or thereabouts, to adopt one of those folks. Isn't costing the taxpayer a dime. It is having a dramatic effect on the homelessness problem. Every one of those congregations from a wide range of religions has adopted at least one of those homeless people. What do you think of that?
I think we have four in West LA. I think we have four religious institutions in West LA.
Well, I'll bet there are, but it's something to think about.
Yeah.
It's something to think about. Let me just share a few ideas, thoughts with you before letting you go out and do your work. I'm very concerned, folks, about this new tax bill. And I'll tell you why. Look, I'm supposed to be a liberal, but I can count. We are currently running a $700 billion annual operating deficit at the federal level. And we're at full employment. Now, if you're at full employment, you gotta have a surplus. There's no money for a tax cut for any purpose. And now we're gonna double that current operating deficit to $1.5 trillion. I think it's crazy. I think it's fiscal madness. Not only that, but we're close to full employment. Tax cuts will tend to stimulate economic activity, right? So I picked up the paper this morning, and the Federal Reserve is about to raise interest rates for the 4th time because they're worried about inflation. Now there's a great trade-off, right? We're going to get a tax cut, but it's going to cost us a hell of a lot more to borrow. I'm sorry, this really is voodoo economics. And I'm very concerned. At this point in time, we ought to have a surplus. And just to go back a little bit, one of my favorite Greek sayings, any Greek speakers in the room? I'm going to teach you a little Greek.
Right here.
Yes? Of course. Pathima, Mathima. It rhymes. You all say it? Pathima, P-A-T-H-I-M-A? Pathima? Mathima. And we had, since the 80s, 2, now 3, big tax cuts. The first was under President Reagan. It was supposed to pay for itself. It didn't. And Reagan, you know, raised taxes 13 times after the big tax cut. Then, of course, poor Bush, who beat me, had to renege on read my lips and raise taxes again. Probably beat him. At least he had the guts to do it. Then Bush 2 came along. He cut taxes. Again, mostly for the wealthy. 83% of this tax cut is going to the wealthiest 1% of the population. And I don't think there are too many of us in this room that qualify for the 1%. And now we're going to do it again. They don't pay for themselves. It doesn't work. Pathima Mathima, right? Things happen. You're supposed to learn from them. We're doing, what was it Einstein said about insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And I'm very concerned because the country finally is out of that terrible recession. We're kind of back on track. We're close to full employment. For God's sake, why are we doing this again? I don't understand. We should be trying to balance that budget and produce a modest surplus at this point in time. If we can't do it now, folks, when are we going to do it? And if another recession comes along, there will be no opportunity to cut taxes when you want to cut taxes, and that is stimulate the economy at a time when it's down. So I'm absolutely baffled. And I don't think even my party has done a very good job. It's all about, well, what kind of a tax cut? There is no money available for a tax cut. We're in the red to the tune of $700 billion. And now we're hearing from people like Cheney and others that deficits don't matter. Deficits do matter. Any of you know what we're spending annually just to pay interest on the national debt these days, which, by the way, is now at about $20 trillion. And if you know, $500 billion a year in the federal budget is going just to pay for interest because we couldn't pay our bills. And when Clinton was finishing up, I don't know how many people, we don't remember, things move so fast these days, we don't remember this. In his last year, this is the year 2000, Clinton, who, came through an interesting 8 years, I think we can agree, finally ended up with the first two back-to-back surpluses we had had in 50 years. This was in 2000. And we had a surplus of $250 billion. A budgetary surplus of $250 billion. He had cut the national debt already by about $600 billion. And there was a big dispute. Well, we got to cut taxes. Clinton gets up at his last State of the Union address, and he says, look, a lot of talk about tax cutting. But he said, looking down the road, we're going to be facing some serious financial problems. One of them is Social Security, which is fine now, got a surplus, that kind of stuff. This is in 2000. But by 2034 or thereabouts, the surplus is going to disappear, and we're going to have to cut Social Security benefits if we don't do something about it. So Clinton said, rather than cut taxes, what we ought to be doing is paying down the debt, and he produced a plan, folks, to reduce and eliminate the national debt in 10 to 12 years. I mean, it was real. And when the pollsters went out and said to people, what do you have, the president's plan with a tax cut, by 2 to 1, they said, forget about the tax cut, do what the president's recommending. Well, go won the election, but Bush became president with this crazy electoral college system of ours. I don't know why we're going to change this. It's really crazy. And so Bush was elected. Cut taxes. Went to war in Iraq. Cost us $3 trillion, that war, and still costing us. And then cut taxes again. Same theory, right? We're going to stimulate the economy. And we now have a national debt of $20 trillion, and it's costing us $500 billion a year just to pay interest on it. I think this is fiscally absolutely irresponsible. I'm sorry, I think it's a terrible mistake. We ought to be working our heads out to get that budget in balance and develop a surplus, because if a recession comes along again, folks, if we continue with this, there's going to be no money for any stimulus. It's going to get worse. And that's from a so-called liberal Democrat. Now, apparently, by what, 1 vote, 2 votes, I don't know what it was, this thing has passed. And, we've got an interesting administration these days in Washington, which you can all make your own judgments about. But this is just plain, in my opinion, fiscal insanity. And I hope we can turn this around, that's all I can do. Now, one other thing. Can I say a little about marijuana?
Yes.
Because I married a beautiful woman who was addicted to amphetamines. Kitty went to Penn State.
Yeah,
Who went to Penn State?
my daughter's a freshman there.
Well, we were both from Brookline, Massachusetts. We both went to the same high school, but she was a freshman, I was a senior. I was a freshman, and all the freshman guys were already talking about this Kitty Dixon person. And in point of fact, my high school girlfriend is the person that introduced us years later. It was one of my dearest friends. So Kitty went out to Penn State and put on about 10 pounds. Now, I think my wife looks better with more weight rather than less. And she's a beautiful woman, still lives at 81. But she came back to Boston concerned about the fact that she was 10 pounds more than she normally was, and a distinguished doctor in Boston gave her diet pills, which were amphetamines. And she was hooked on those things, folks. Within 30 days, she was one of 3 million young women who were given those things to reduce their weight. And she was not hooked on amphetamines 26 years. And it was hell to get off. She got off, and then began experiencing recurring cycles of depression for 17 years, until finally electroconvulsive therapy saved 5 months later. And she's become one of the major national spokespeople for ECT as a treatment for serious depression. And by the way, for serious depression, it's by far the most effective, 80 to 90% effective. Katie's been on ECT maintenance for, I don't know, 10, 12 years, and she's doing great. But we're very familiar with this addiction problem. Now, I'm not a prohibitionist, it doesn't work. I'm sure our law enforcement officers will tell you that. But I don't know who the PR genius was who came up with the phrase recreational marijuana. But I think it ought to stop. Now, we've had a hugely successful effort to reduce the use of tobacco, right? I mean, hugely successful. And we've treated tobacco addiction, because that's what it is and was, as a public health problem. And really, it's been a great public health success. But I don't remember us talking about the recreational use of tobacco. Do you?
No.
The recreational use of tobacco. We said it was a serious public health problem. We cared if you kept smoking. What is this recreational marijuana stuff all about? People say, well, it started in Colorado. I happen to have a daughter who's the political editor of Colorado Public Radio, Denver. So we go out there very often. And I don't know how many of you know about Denver geographically, but they're fairly close to a place called Cherry Creek, which is very successful shopping area. And I'll never forget walking down there when I first there, and there was an early marijuana dispensary, so-called. Can't be a drugstore because federal law prohibits this stuff. So we have this crazy conflict of laws between federal and state. And the name of the dispensary was Rocky Mountain High. Yeah. Medical marijuana, right? Now, it's being legalized all over the place, right? And I think yesterday, this great state of California has done so people were waiting at 6 o'clock in the morning to pick up their stuff. Folks, marijuana is addictive, it's carcinogenic, and it's a gateway drug.
Thank you.
Which doesn't mean that we ought to try prohibition. Again, it doesn't work. But we should be dealing with marijuana, it seems to me, as a public health problem. Unless we want this country to become a nation of potheads. And it seems as if we're on our way to that. And I am very, very troubled. Especially having been married for 54 years to the love of my life, but having lived through 17 brutal years. Until she finally managed to get out of this thing with the help of ECT. And I just hope every single one of us will take on this challenge and we'll see if we can't begin to deal with addictive substances generally, and marijuana is one of them, the way we successfully attacked what is nicotine addiction. And I mean, the press is now using the phrase recreational marijuana, just as a kind of way to describe what? Non-medical marijuana, and we still haven't amended our law so we can do some clinical trials on medical marijuana to determine whether or not, in fact, it's helpful medically. We ought to be doing that. But recreational marijuana, I'm sorry, I don't know if you're bothered by it, but I'm bothered by it. And that's a great message, you know, to deliver to the young people coming along here. Anyway, sorry to get a few things off my head, on my chest, but let me simply wrap up, and I don't know if you've got any questions. I've got to go out and do some stuff. Just a big thank you to Kitty and me for welcoming us to West LA, to a great university, and giving us the opportunity to do this. You know, when I say to my pals and constituents back in Boston, you know, difficult though it is, we got to drag ourselves out of New England. By December, we'll be back in early April. You know, it's a terrible burden, somebody's got to do it. But it's really been a wonderful experience for us, I'll tell you. And you've got such great things going. And frankly, I mean, I've watched, we've been out here now, it's our 23rd year. I mean, Los Angeles really is getting its act together. Now, I'm a huge public transportation guy, as many of you may know. I had a lot to do with turning the bus transit system to a respectable public transportation system. But people of this county voted twice to tax themselves. It's really happening. And it's transforming, it will transform the city. Trust me. It will transform the city. Now, there's only one problem. The better life gets in Los Angeles, the more homeless people you're going to have. Because the same thing's happening here that's happened in Boston. You know, we're a hugely successful city. We've got a great transit system, although the current government's got to get on this horse here and start doing a better job of managing the system. But as you develop a city that's great to live in, it gets better and better and better, price of housing is gonna go up and up and up. And unless, it's not just you guys, it's us and a lot of other people, unless we start investing in some affordable housing, including housing for folks with serious psychological and addictive problems, this homelessness problem is not gonna go away. And since the Trump administration is trying to just cut federal housing funds to ribbons, the states are going to have to step in, folks. They're going to help local communities do this. And it's a problem. We have, you have it, and it's very serious. Otherwise, you'll end up with more and more homeless people, because even folks that aren't suffering from mental illness or addiction are having a tough time these days in Boston affording housing costs there. And we've got young people pouring into the place, who love the city, and are working in the biotech industry and all these other places. It's great to have them, but our housing costs are going to go through the roof, so we know exactly what you're going through. Anyway, enough from me. Great to be with you. Going up to the campus today to meet my new student assistants. One of them may end up as the mayor of Riverside for all I know. But I just want to tell you, it's been a wonderful experience for us. And Bruce Bay, thank you for not only making it possible for me to come over here and share a few thoughts, but producing good Greek food on Westwood. And I strongly urge all of you to take advantage of that. It's great stuff. Anyway, any thoughts, questions, reactions? Or have you had enough? Yeah.
Yeah, just on marijuana, my dad's a pediatric neurologist, and he sees firsthand the marijuana damage done to teenagers because they have seizures, they have learning disabilities, all caused by marijuana. And he has proof. He has EKGs, MRIs, and it shows the brain damage.
So you ask him this, where is the medical profession these days? And I'm a guy who was a failed pre-med. I practically flunked physics at Swarthmore College, and that was the Hamburg. But I'm the son of a Greek immigrant from Western Turkey who came over to this country when he was 15 in 1912. Didn't have a nickel in his pocket, folks. Couldn't speak a word of English. And 12 years later, graduated from Harvard Medical School and practiced medicine for 52 years. That was my father. So I have enormous respect for the medical profession, but I don't, where's organized medicine? They're silent.
Not really, the American Medical Association, they've come down.
I'm not hearing them. I'm not hearing them. And somebody ought to get on this recreational marijuana routine. And there's nobody better than the American Medical Association to do that. I mean, they mobilized on the tobacco front. I'm not hearing them, frankly, on this one. Getting overwhelmed with this stuff. Yeah.
Perhaps use the word recreational marijuana is to distinguish it from medical marijuana. But when you have 450,000 Americans dying a year from tobacco and 150 from alcohol and none from marijuana, you can see there's a difference.
But it's carcinogenic, you know. People are going to die from marijuana. I mean, regular users of marijuana are going to...
Where are the numbers? Anyway, I don't want to argue with you, but
if you get more and more use of marijuana, you're going to have more cancer. And the stuff is carcinogenic. There's no, I don't think there's any question about it.
Well, it might be, but as a 45-year user of medical marijuana, I can tell you that I don't have any cancer, and stress is a big killer. Stress is a huge killer, and marijuana helps people reduce their stress and helps them sleep. But we can have that discussion later.
There are better ways to deal with stress. Put this carcinogenic substance in your lungs. Yeah, go ahead.
Governor, have you, my biggest concern right now for our country is we seem to be incapable of having dialogue across parties. I feel like I'm 49, so I feel like it started really kind of in the late 90s, where nowadays there's so much division where a liberal, when they see a conservative or hear their ideas, they assume they're evil. Yeah. And vice versa, a conservative will say that liberal person is evil. What happened to our ability to actually have dialogue and to be able to understand other people's point of view, and how do we get back to that
That's a good question.
spot?
A little bit of personal history. I was elected to the Massachusetts legislature in 1962. And Massachusetts Massachusetts was one of the 3 or 4 most corrupt states in the country. Okay. And I was a reformer. In fact, the press started referring to me as the head of the Young Turks in the legislature. And my father got very upset. I said, Dad, it's just a bigger speech. So okay, he was a Greek from Western Turkey, back when there were married Greeks in Western Turkey. And we had a lot of cleaning up to do, let me tell you. And Massachusetts today, look, every once in a while we have people who do dumb things, but Massachusetts today, I think, has a reputation in a place with relatively good government and clean government. I was a pretty good talker. I was not a very good listener. I ran for the governorship, I got elected, dug the state out of a terrible recession, and got defeated for re-election the first time out. By a kind of, if I may say, Trump-like Democrat, who subsequently became Republican. 4 years later, I beat him, and I was re-elected again for my 3rd term. But that defeat was very therapeutic. And I started listening and concluding that if you wanted to get things done, you had to be a consensus builder.
Right, that's exactly right.
You could be a reformer, you could raise hell about corruption and a lot of other things, but if you were to get anything done in a serious way. And I began listening. And gradually developed an approach to this where I would basically, every time we went down the policy road on a particularly important issue, I would identify 20, 25, 30, 40 key people or organizations and bring them together. And we'd put together a working group. And we'd talk. And it was amazing how, with very few exceptions, I mean, there are some issues that divide people because they're important religious, moral issues and so forth. So you gotta understand that. I mean, abortion is an issue on which we're gonna have differences of opinion. But I don't think, if you go out and take a poll tomorrow, folks, and ask the American people, should working Americans and their families have decent, affordable health care, what do you think the numbers are? 93% say yes.
Yeah.
And remember, 85% of the uninsured people in this country are working, or members of working families. They're not sitting around, they're not on public assistance. If you're on welfare, you get Medicaid. These are working folks, no health insurance. Now, if I'd been in the White House, could I have put some kind of consensus together? I don't know, Americans and their families should have decent, affordable health care. And I think over 90% would have said yes. Now the question is, okay, how do you do it? But I'll tell you this, in my experience, if you get people to agree on what the problem is, you're halfway to a solution. And then the challenge, you know, if you're in politics, is how do you use your whatever skills you have and authority to try to develop a solution to the problem. We haven't had much of that these days. We haven't had much of that. And the only thing I can say is, hey, the folks who we elect to public office, whether Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives, agree on 90% of the issues. And we want good schools for our kids. We want safe communities. We want decent, affordable health care. These are not complicated issues. We'd like a planet that's still going to be around for 60 or 70 years from now, right? And the vast majority of Americans do believe that climate change is real. The question is, okay, how do we go about doing this? Now, this doesn't give you, there's no magic solution here except to try to elect folks to public office who are consensus builders, not folks who love conflict. And I won't identify anybody, but look, the guy in the White House seems to be a guy that loves conflict. I'm sorry, that's not the way you do it. It's not the way you build consensus. It's not the way you listen. And try then to build consensus. And I'm not just talking about Washington. I mean, this is at every level. I will say this to you. I think at the state and local level, we're getting more consensus and more collaboration by far than the national level. Don't ask me why that's the case. And I'm talking about states which have Republican governors, Democratic governors, Republican legislatures, and at the city level. I mean, I have a sense these days, I don't want to get romantic about Los Angeles, but I have a sense these days that this city really has kind of got its act together. People are talking to each other. I don't sense a lot of conflict.
there's only one Republican on the council. Just so you know.
But look, I worked with terrific Republicans, let me tell you. Excellent Republicans. Now, we used to call them moderate Republicans, whatever. But 93% of the American people think that working Americans and their families should have decent, affordable health care. Think about it. Think about it. And, you know, one of the things that I try to do in my teaching, and I now have hundreds and hundreds of former students out there, folks, doing great things in the public sector. One of the things I try to do is talk about how do you build consensus? How do you bring people together? This is not all about conflict. But each in our own way has to do this, because this is crazy. This country is a lot better than this. And, you know, as a guy who's been in public life since I got elected president of the third grade class at the Vega School in Brookline, Massachusetts, by the way, with a teacher named Mary Ripley, whose son showed up at a speech I made at Cal State Fulton last year, now moved to California, with an album under his arm with pictures of his mother and me as governor. She was still teaching. I brought her and her class to the State House. He said, my mother followed every single thing you did. She was the third grade teacher that decided we'd have elections for class officers in 1941. It got me started, I guess, on a political career. So, you know, Kitty and I have had a great life, folks, and we're still at it. Somebody said to me the other day, well, it must be great that you're out of politics. I said, let me tell you something, you're never out of politics. Still trying to connect North and South Station by rail. You know what I tell them? What the hell's the matter with us here in Boston? Los Angeles is building the regional connector, and it's going to be done in a year and a half, and we can't connect North and South Station by rail. So you see, there are advantages to being up here. Los Angeles, the car capital of the world. They're doing it, we're not doing it. Maybe one last question, then we'll get it wrapped up.
That's the last one.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I work in education, and we recently found out that a lot of our students are having really difficult times affording housing in the communities they go to school in.
Yeah.
On the homeless issue, Los Angeles passed, the voters, thank you, passed 3 taxes on themselves,
Right.
and bonds. One for $3 billion to rebuild our community colleges.
Right.
One for Measure M for transportation, and HHH. But as you know, having been governor and in the legislature, it takes a long time to roll out those funds. Have you seen anything that our local leaders could do to temporarily, because it's going to take a while to provide the permanent housing, we don't have anywhere near enough housing for the current crop of homeless. I don't understand, and the problem is the federal government has surplus land, but I doubt they'll help us and give it to us so that we could put up tents or, you know, and communities often object to that. But have you seen anything in other states to deal with the temporary problem with homelessness versus the long-term need?
Well, let me say 2 things. First, it should not take this long, once you pass a bond issue, to execute. And it's a serious problem in this country. There was a 3-page story in the New York Times the other day about the proposed tunnel, the second tunnel to bring trains into New York City. Its estimated cost is 5 times what a similar project in Paris is costing. We're not only investing enough in our public infrastructure, we can't execute it. We can't execute it. I don't understand it. Look at the problem in Boston. And a lot of it is people. I had a director of planning and construction at the MBTA named Frank Keller. Irish kid from Dorchester, Boston, went to Northeast University on a so-called co-op program where these kids work and study. Keller was my director of planning and construction. Did $3 billion worth of construction in the 80s, on the T as we call it. On time, on budget, no screwing around. The current situation, you can't, build an outhouse. I mean, a lot of it's people. A lot of it's people. And one of the things you got to do is demand that folks who are in charge of these programs execute them. Now, one suggestion, I don't know what, maybe Los Angeles has already done this. If they haven't, they should. There ought to be a detailed inventory of all publicly owned land in the city. I'll bet you'd find hundreds of acres of land. I don't know, you guys may not confirm this, but I gotta tell you, I know very few communities that don't have a lot of public land sitting around, which could be donated to nonprofits or others and turned into housing. Is that happening? Check it out. Check it out. And it's a nice way, at no additional dollar cost, for a community to essentially subsidize affordable housing by contributing public land. It's just sitting there. And I can't imagine that there aren't parcels of publicly owned land all over the city. Now, that's just one small suggestion. And it doesn't have to be public housing. In fact, we had disastrous experiences with public housing. You know, when it was in the mid-60s, I was a member of Special Commission on Low-Income Housing, and we first suggested the notion of mixed-income public housing, or publicly assisted housing. I was very skeptical, folks. You know, we could mix really poor people in with middle and upper income folks. It was the 3 real estate representatives, where are real estate representatives, who said, hey, it'll work if you keep your deep subsidy folks to a maximum of 25% of the total unit. This came from the real estate folks. And it's worked. Massachusetts is now loaded with mixed income housing developments with no more than 25% really poor folks who seem to work and thrive in that kind of arrangement when they aren't surrounded by all kinds of other folks who are poor. And we had our large projects, folks. One called Columbia Point, which is now next to the Kennedy Library, which it was so bad that the poorest of the poor would live there. It's now a thriving mixed income with some public assistance. And it's a great model. It really does work. But, you know, I don't know who's in charge of housing these days. Obviously, it's the mayor. Get the mayor out here. Talk to him about this. But an inventory of publicly owned land as an initial contribution and mixed income housing with lots of developers can do them, nonprofits can do them. That's the way we're going to solve the problem. Is that enough?
Yeah, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Governor. We appreciate that. All right, so we are going to do a little bit more networking now. We are going to do I'm going to call it the roundhouse, okay? I'm going to start over on this side of the room, and everyone is going to be able to basically introduce their name, their company, and if the company name is not clearly indicative of what you do, one sentence, and that's a short sentence, not a run-on paragraph, of exactly, you know, what your company does. And we're going to stand up and go all the way around the room. So if you are looking for something for one of your clients, or you're looking to develop a relationship with a certain person, make sure you pay attention so that you can grab that person's card after we're done. Okay, I'm going to start right over here.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, Ted.
My name is Ted Green. I'm a public affairs consultant. My firm is Green Public Affairs and Campaigns.
Great, thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Philip Gabriel. I own a store called Scrubs Unlimited, and we sell lab coats and scrubs.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is Brian Manalastas, and I am a chiropractor. I run a clinic called the Chiropractic Movement, and I apologize because I have to go to see a patient now. We have a grand opening on January 20th, and when we're joined, we'd love to see everyone show up.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Joseph Lopez. I'm the State Ambassador for West Cal Academy, and we help guide college students to their first entry-level job before they graduate.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina Solter. I'm a financial advisor with the Zeitges Hutchinson Sosa Wealth Management Group, and we help professionals figure out their financial life.
Awesome.
Good morning. My name is Esther King. I'm a traditional Chinese doctor. I use acupuncture and herbs healing disease. Chinese medicine not just can healing sickness, can teach you is preventive medicine, make your body balance, you'll be very healthy, successful.
Thank you, Esther.
Good morning, my name is Faye Judy Wazansky. I work for Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, and I'm in residential properties.
Thank you. Steve Little, State Farm Insurance. Any of your personal or commercial insurance needs, we can take care of those.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to meet you. I go by PJ. I'm a mortgage broker, and currently I am licensed in 17 states. We help homeowners or anyone that's looking to buy a property or refinance their property with their financing. Thank you.
Good morning, Cynthia Rockwell, U.S. Bank Mortgage.
My name is Todd Meister. I'm also with U.S. Bank. I'm a business and commercial lender. I provide business owners with the tools, the right financial tools for success and growth of their business.
Good morning, Christine Halverson, Berkshire Hathaway Real Estate, homes, condos, and investment properties.
Good morning, Arash Hashemi, attorney in law. The majority of my business is criminal defense.
Pleasant morning to everybody. Simone Etahad. I've been practicing law for the past 21 years. Civil litigation, personal injury, state control.
Good morning, Gary Average from Go Graphics and Printing Company. And you're above average.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Reza Razi. I'm a photographer.
My name is Farzad Refai. I'm a filmmaker, cinematographer, and photographer.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Scott Swankin. I'm on the Los Angeles Community College Board, and I'm a candidate to be the tax collector for the state of California in this region for the Board of Equalization.
Good morning, my name is Alham Yabobian. From Tower of Babel Language Services. We provide tutoring and translation.
Happy New Year. My name is Bill Manos. I'm the president of Food Safety Associates. We advise clients on how to meet regulations by the health department and FDA.
Our chamber president, Bruce Bain.
Good morning, Bruce Batar. I'm owner of the Delphi Greek Catering and Restaurant. Mostly we serve the businesses in the area.
Hi, I'm Brian Winley. I'm the patrol commanding officer over here, and I try desperately to keep West LA out of the news.
And I'm Buzz Park with Light Your Marketing Group. We help local businesses find, get, and keep customers, website, email marketing, pay-per-click advertising, and content delivery. Give yourselves a round of applause for everyone. Excellent. Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our program today. Just remember, if you heard somebody give their, do we have door prize? Yes. Oh, yes, good. So we're not at the end. If you have not yet put your business card in the silver bowl of goodness, make sure you do so. Yeah. And by the way, Gary, who sponsored last month, has some gift bags left over. And if you still want to make contributions to the West LA Food Bank, talk to Gary, and you can make that happen today as well. We exceeded our goal last month, so great job on making that happen. All right, does everyone have their card in the silver bowl of goodness? The chances of winning today are pretty high.
Okay, I'm gonna pick. This is from my company, Food Safety Associates, and
It's a free food inspection for your restaurant.
it's actually a $25 gift certificate to Starbucks. Since we get here early, we may need one before we get here.
Last thing he needs is more coffee.
Thank you, sir. Since we're Greek and we love to eat, and we love to eat style, this is a gift certificate to Fleming's worth $120. Given to my partners and I from our pest control division, Pacific. I got myself. I swear to God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Redraw. That's the first time I've ever thrown one in. All right, I'm going to close my. All right, this is a colored one. Doctor, he left.
Oh, he left.
This is the first time I've drawn, you can see I'm a rookie at this, okay.
That's not my card.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, right
I
here.
can't see.
Hey, it's right here.
Thank you.
Only if I wasn't a setup.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
We're trying to stay away from rigged events here. My goodness. Well, it's been my pleasure being your host today. I'd like to end with a quote. This quote is from Albert Einstein, and he said, "Only those who attempt the absurd can achieve the impossible." So West LA, go out and attempt the absurd, achieve the impossible, and we will see you at the next event. Thank you very much. Happy New Year.